Hello and welcome to Brewers Daily, part of the Fan Arch Podcast Network. This episode is brought to you by Kalshi. Use promo code FANARCHBASEBALL to get $10 when you trade 10. I'm Dave Gasper. Lots to get to here on a Friday show. My goodness, what an end to the Giants series that was. Holy cow. First you get a 1-0 loss where there is no offense at all. And then in the finale, you get a 12-9 offensive slugfest where the ball is just flying out of American Family Field. We'll get into that. Some injuries also happened in this game as well. A tough one for the Brewers pitching staff, and look ahead to this Rockies series. But the starter for this game, Coleman Crow, did not have a good outing. He's been pretty solid his first couple of starts. This is his fourth start in the major leagues, and it was his worst one by far. 2 1/3 innings for Coleman Crow, 9 hits, 6 earned runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. Gave up a home run on the first pitch of the game. Jackson Chourio had a chance at it, but he jumped a little late, a little too close to the wall, so he hit the wall before being able to get to peak height and being able to get the ball. If the wall was pushed back a little bit, the way he was jumping, he would have had that ball, but he just misread where the wall was, and ends up being a home run, and it really just kind of went downhill from there. A lot of hard contact that Coleman Crow gave up in this game. First inning was rough. 3 runs in the first. Stranded the bases loaded, which, it's like, okay, could have been worse. Comes out in the second inning, goes 1-2-3 through the top of the order. So I was like, okay, maybe Coleman Crow has settled down a little bit, settled in, and he can still maybe somehow get through 5 innings here. But then third inning rolls around, and the Giants just continue to tee off on him. And he allows the first 4 runners to reach base. Excuse me. And it just went downhill from there. Pat Murphy had to make the change, and ultimately the Brewers go down big. D.L. Hall is able to get the sacrifice, bases loaded. Able to get a sacrifice fly to get 1 out there, and then get a strikeout to end the inning, and really kind of do some good damage control there, because it was looking like it could be really, really bad. And the offense hadn't really gotten the ability to do a whole ton at that point, so they're down 6-1. But yeah, you go to D.L. Hall, it's like, okay, see what D.L. Hall can do. And that's when the cascade really got worse, and that's when having Coleman Crow not make it through 3 innings really got worse, because D.L. Hall left with an injury after just 2 1/3 innings. He threw a pitch. Immediately, you could tell he kind of winced and called over the training staff, and he left the game. And that was very concerning, because D.L. Hall has been, obviously a very valuable left-handed reliever for the Brewers, can provide bulk, can provide multiple innings for the team, especially when they're down 3 of their other top left-handed relievers. Angel Zerpa's down for the year. Jared Koenig's been out. Rob Zastryzny is back on the IL. So you're down a lot of lefties. And so D.L. Hall leaves with what Pat Murphy called a subscap and pec issue. That was the injury. That's where he was kind of feeling the pain. They are going to get an MRI for D.L. Hall. So we're not quite sure what the full diagnosis is, how long he may be out. We're going to figure that out kind of as this weekend goes along, as he gets the imaging done, and we learn more about what the actual injury is. But it's kind of, the muscular, damage there, soft tissue, muscular, whatever it is that you want to call it. There's something there that was clearly causing him a problem. He said he started to feel it a few pitches earlier, as he was kind of warming up a little bit that inning, and then he felt his pec tighten up, trying to pitch through it. Wanted to finish that batter that he was facing, ultimately was not able to, and the Brewers, the athletic training staff said, no, we're not going to have you do that. We're going to pull you, and we're going to bring in Grant Anderson instead. And Grant Anderson did well for the time being, and then Grant Anderson gets hit on a comebacker right on the forearm. He showed us afterwards, it was quite the welt that he had there. The seam marks were still there for Grant Anderson. So Anderson leaves with a forearm contusion that he suffered on that comeback, or kind of stumbled to the ground, was in some severe pain, and it's on his throwing arm too. So that is the tough part about it. Grant Anderson telling us afterwards that there are no fractures, which is good news. So very positive update on that for Grant Anderson. Got the x-rays, said no fractures with that. They're going to continue to kind of test it out and see how he feels. He's going to play catch once he gets to Colorado. Once they get out there, he's going to throw a little bit, see how the arm's feeling. But I think there might be a chance that he could avoid an IL stint. Unlike DL Hall. When DL Hall, I mean, you got the pec and a subscap thing that tightens up on you like that. I find it hard to believe that that's just going to be, a 1-day, 2-day thing, and they're going to avoid the IL. That sounds like an IL stint to me. A forearm contusion on a comebacker for Anderson. If it's just a contusion, get a little ice on it. He should be able to be fine to go in a day or two, and maybe avoid the IL. But we shall ultimately end up seeing what happens there, because he's still not necessarily out of the clear or out of the woods for an IL stint for that. But that's going to be something to keep an eye on, because losing both of those guys at the same time, especially after you had a short start from Coleman Crow, that's not great. I mean, you're already short a man in the bullpen. When Robert Gasser got called up, Rob Z got put on the IL, so you already only had 7 out there, and now you potentially lose 2 to injury in the same game, back-to-back. That's really tough, and that did leave Jake Woodford to kind of settle the rest of the game. And Woodford was already warming up anyways at the time of Anderson's injury, but he came in, and then the floodgates really kind of opened, and 6 more runs ended up coming across to score. So I mean, he ended up in mop-up duty there. And so just kind of really tough all the way around, especially as the Brewers offense came back later in that game. They were able to score a whole bunch of runs in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning and kind of get themselves back into it. They had the tying run at the plate with 2 outs in the 9th, David Hamilton, and he scalds one to center field, 101 plus off the bat. The ball had been flying all day. Center fielder Drew Gilbert just keeps going back. You think, oh my goodness, has he done it? And the baseball dies at the track, and it ends up going just for a long fly out, and the game ended. Tough one for the Brewers. The offense too little, too late, but they put up a fight despite having Bryce Terang, William Contreras get taken out because it was a blowout. It was 12-3, so it's like no chance. Just get the starters out to rest. Get Blake Perkins in there. Get Andrew Vaughn in there because he wasn't in the lineup. Get Joey Ortiz in there. Get all those guys in the lineup. Get them some ABs, and the offense was doing some work. It was giving them a chance late, but ultimately ended up not being enough. If you had the over on the total in that game, you were feeling good, especially if you're over there on Kalshi and what those odds were with the over, because on Kalshi you can trade every single game. And especially when you get started using that promo code FANARCHBASEBALL. But the Brewers now heading out to Colorado for this series coming up next. And the Colorado Rockies, they've been trying to get a little bit better, but they're still bad. They're still not a very good baseball team overall. And Colorado, it's going to be an interesting environment, as it always is out in Coors Field. In terms of pitching, but I think the Brewers have also had quite a bit of success there as well over the years. And the Brewers right now on Kalshi, they are trading at 39% to win this game by over 2.5 runs. So if there's a 3-run or more victory, that's currently trading at 39% on Kalshi, which means a $100 trade would pay out $250 with a win. That sounds pretty darn good to me. And I would love to see the Brewers kind of get back on that horse after dropping these last 2 against San Francisco. So yeah, and that's what they're at, 39% chance on Kalshi to win this game by 3 runs or more. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use promo code FANARCHBASEBALL to get $10 when you trade 10 KALSHI Kalshi trade on anything. All right. So, with those injuries to the Brewers bullpen that we just saw here on Thursday, you had DL Hall leave with a subscap and pec issue. Grant Anderson, a forearm contusion. If these guys go on the IL, who in the world is going to be called up to this Brewers bullpen? I think a very strong possibility right now is that we see the return of Brian Fitzpatrick. Brian Fitzpatrick is the only other left-handed reliever on this 40-man roster. DL Hall sounds like a much stronger bet to be placed on the IL given his injury. And so if Hall goes on the IL, there is one left-hander in that Brewers bullpen, and it's Aaron Ashby. The Brewers have liked having multiple lefties out of that bullpen, especially now with Shane Drowan currently in the rotation, Robert Gasser currently in the rotation. That leaves them a little bit short on lefties out there. Koenig is still quite not there yet. So Brian Fitzpatrick, I feel like, is a very strong candidate to have a plane ticket to Denver, where he is going to meet up with this club. That's one that I feel pretty strongly that we're going to end up seeing here. Now, if Grant Anderson also needs an IL stint with his forearm contusion, excuse me, this is where I'm looking at Craig Yoho to potentially come up and finally get a spot. Yoho has been putting up really good numbers down in AAA. He's been elite at run prevention. His walk rate is down a little bit this year, so that's good to see. That's been a big problem for him and why the Brewers haven't used him more, despite his high prospect pedigree that he's had over the past couple of years. Despite his great results in the minor leagues, they haven't called on him to this point. But if Grant Anderson needs an IL stint as a right-handed reliever there, I think this has got to be the moment for Yoho. If the Brewers opt to go with someone else instead of Yoho and Anderson needs an IL stint, then I think we really have to start being concerned about just how well the Brewers view Craig Yoho, if they view him as a viable MLB reliever. Because they may not. I mean, they had the issues with the command last year. The changeup is obviously really good. The fastball isn't great. They play off each other pretty well, but you have to have very strong command if you don't have that overpowering stuff coming out of the bullpen. So for Yoho, this may be his shot if Anderson ends up needing an IL stint to come up here and try and prove that he ends up belonging. But that's where I'm really going to be concerned. If Anderson doesn't need to go on the IL and it's just Hall that goes on the IL, I'm not going to read too much into Fitzpatrick being the choice over Yoho just because of that left-handedness being a thing. So I think that's a really good spot to look. Yoho there. Otherwise, you're looking at Easton McGee, who could come back up. We've already seen him up a couple of times with the club. Easton McGee, another potential option there. And also Carlos Rodriguez is the other pitcher on the 40-man roster down there in AAA Nashville. The Brewers just sent him down the other day. But if there is an IL stint, he can be called back up. And especially if the Brewers need some bulk innings, a multiple inning reliever, Carlos Rodriguez is more likely to be the guy versus a Brian Fitzpatrick or a Craig Yoho or even an Easton McGee. Easton McGee probably can, but we haven't seen him quite as much in those kinds of roles. But I think you're strong contenders there. Brian Fitzpatrick, absolutely in a very strong position, because I think it's far more likely that DL Hall ends up on the IL here. But also, you got to look at Craig Yoho. I think he's a strong contender if Anderson goes on the IL, but don't count out Easton McGee either. And if the Brewers want to go outside of their 40-man roster, Drew Rom is another left-handed reliever who has done pretty well in AAA Nashville. He's got some pretty good, walk to strikeout numbers. Pretty good ERA down there as well as a left-handed reliever. The Brewers can open up a 40-man spot pretty easily by putting Quinn Priester on the 60-day IL. He's already reached 60 days, so it wouldn't really change all that much. And, I think he's a possibility. You got to look at maybe Jacob Wagspack, who's down there. He's done pretty well for AAA Nashville, was a non-roster invite this spring. So, a couple of different names that they could go with, but Fitzpatrick, I believe, is for sure the strongest. And if Anderson goes on the IL, that's got to be Craig Yoho time. If it's not, we got to have a more serious conversation about the viability of Craig Yoho as an MLB reliever. All right. Finally here, to wrap things up, I want to look ahead to this Colorado Rockies series that the Brewers have and just kind of preview what's going to be coming up this weekend. And the Brewers are going to have Miz on the mound in this series. Miz in Coors Field, Miz at altitude, sure is probably going to be fun. So I'm very excited to see what that's going to be looking like. But that's happening on Saturday. On Friday, today here, what's coming up later tonight, Brandon Sproat is on the mound for the Crew. Ryan Feltner, right-hander, is going to be starting for the Colorado Rockies. Feltner, a 4.85 ERA on the season. Brandon Sproat, a 6.24 ERA. Brandon Sproat at altitude, I'm probably a little less excited for, in terms of how his stuff is going to play. Sproat has struggled a bit more often his last couple of times out. So that's going to be very interesting how this one plays out here tonight. But then again, it is the Colorado Rockies. They are 24-39. They're not exactly a ball club firing on all cylinders at the moment. But wild things can happen at Coors Field. But that's what's coming up tonight. Jacob Misiorowski, as mentioned, is starting on Saturday. Tanner Gordon is going to be starting for the Rockies on Saturday. 0-1 with a 6.37 ERA on the season. I like the Brewers' chances on Saturday with Miz on the mound against a guy with an over 6 ERA for the Rockies. I think the Brewers got a pretty good chance of winning there Saturday night. And then Sunday, Shane Drowan is on the mound for the Crew, the probable starter there. And he's going up against, who else would it be but Kyle Freeland. It feels like every single time the Brewers and Rockies have played, Kyle Freeland has pitched in that series. Every single time. Going back his entire career. Like forever. It is always Kyle Freeland pitching against the Brewers. Kyle Freeland, a left-hander, 1-6 on the season, an 8.06 ERA on the year. Kyle Freeland, in the words of Toby Keith, is not as good as he once was. Not that he was ever really truly great because he's been pitching in Coors his entire career. But still, he did have some decent years there. I mean, he had a 2.85 ERA in 2018 when the Brewers faced Freeland and the Rockies in that first round of the playoffs in the NLDS. But he's been more of a mid-4s ERA kind of guy than the past couple of years. 5-something ERA. Last year, 4.98 ERA. This year, 8.06. I mean, it's tough for anyone to spend a 10-year career pitching in Coors Field, largely for half your games, but you see him all the time. But that's the lefty in the series for the Rockies. You got a battle of lefties there, Kyle Freeland and Shane Drowan for that Sunday matinee finale. So should be a good one. Hopefully the Brewers can get some more positive momentum going here after they dropped the last two against the San Francisco Giants. They're going to need it here. So taking on the Rockies, a team that they should be beating up on pretty good, and it's gonna be a fun weekend, absolutely, as the Brewers take on that club, and we'll see what news ends up coming out here about DL Hall and Grant Anderson and the IL stint and roster transactions that may end up coming here. And we'll be breaking it all down on Monday, as we always do. And if you're looking for stuff in the meantime, follow me on Twitter at dgasper24. Follow my writing at Brew Crew Ball as well. And be sure to subscribe here to Brewers Daily and get notified every single time a new episode drops. Appreciate all of you watching and listening. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you again next time for another episode of Brewers Daily.